All right, so my fabric is dry, and so now we're going to start to sew it together. We are going to use the running stitch. Running stitch goes up and down, up and down, up and down, just like the lines in a road. So, excuse me, now I have my two pieces of fabric. We are going to be sewing this inside out, and you'll see later the reason why. And so I'm going to flip this over, and you'll be able to tell if it's flipped over is because this side the Sharpie is not as bright. This side it is brighter, as is my paint. So make sure that that is flipped over and your fabric is lined up. Okay, so before I go and do this, I'm going to take the end of my yarn and I am just going to tie a knot. And for good measure, oh, just ignore that bell. For good measure, I'm going to tie a double knot just right there. And so as I'm doing the running stitch, I'm going to be sewing over here, here. I always like to start at a corner here, here. And about halfway, you're going to stop, and I'll show you how to stuff it then. Okay, so I have my very, very long piece of yarn. That will hopefully get me through. And so you might have to cut it off if it's too frayed, but I'm going to pinch it to get it through the eye of the needle. I'm not going to knot it because then you're going to have a really hard time pulling the yarn through with the needle. So what I like to do sometimes, it kind of helps me, if you need the fabric to stay together, is just to get some tape and just kind of tape it together, and then when you reach that point for the tape, just take it off. So I'm just going to tape a few of my areas together just so I know that that's not going to move around, and when I reach those areas, I'll just take that off. All right, I'm going to start to sew this edge. Doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to go up through. Let me zoom in a little bit just so you can get a better look. I'm going to go up through it, pull that yarn all the way through to the end, and I mean all the way through. This is a long piece of yarn, and the reason why we're sewing that inside out is because we have this leftover bit, and when we finish, we'll be able to just tie that, and no one will be able to see where we started. All right, so now that I have that little bit started, so just like the lines in a road, I'm going back down. I went up first, and now I'm going back down. Come on, needle. You can do it. There we go. And it's going to be a lot of pulling, but you're going to pull it through. And make sure that when you have like this big thing of yarn, don't get a knot. If you see a knot happening, get that out right away. Otherwise, you're not going to have a good time. Oh, get it? You're not going to have a good time because you made a knot. Oh, I'm so funny. So I'm pulling that yarn all the way through, and you want it to look like it's the lines in a road. So I'm just going to put that off to the side. So now that I went down, now I need to come back up. Kind of keep your stitches nice and close together because that's going to hold in the fluff. So it's starting to look like that. Woohoo! All right, so I sewed this side, this side, this side, and about a little over half of a way of the pillow. Then you want to stop because now it's time to stuff, but actually not yet because we got to turn this inside out. All right, so when you're turning it inside out, you have to be a little bit gentle. So just kind of take your time. Don't be too rough with it. And just kind of shake it. Well, I mean, gently shake it. Don't whip it across the room. So this is why I had you sew it inside out. So if you look along the seams, the really frayed, it's called the salvage edge of like a freshly cut edge, you can't see that anymore. You can't see the stitches. If you really pull it apart, you can see it. But that's good craftsmanship that we can't see it. The corners, you might have a little bit of a hard time getting those out. Sometimes I like to use a tool like a pencil or something to get those kind of poked out where we need them to go. Let me get this last one. And then we can start stuffing it, not like the turkey stuffing, but like fluffy stuffing and stuff like that. Okay. All right, so I still have my needle attached and everything. This corner will probably come out as we're stuffing it. When you're stuffing it, you don't want to overly stuff it so you can't like sew it in, but you want to put enough stuffing in it. So I'm going to just do little bits at a time. And if I run into an area where it's hard to stuff, use a pencil, but remember to be gentle with your pillow. Your pillow deserves respect. It deserves kindness. So make sure you are gentle with it. All right, so I think that's enough stuffing for now. When you stuff it, you kind of want to roll it back and forth to kind of get it. It'll eventually kind of work itself into places where it isn't, so don't worry about that too much. And now it's time to sew this baby back up. And so before you sew it back up, get the end of that knot where we started. And now it's all about just kind of pinching it until we get to the very end. Take your time. All right, now that I have that all stitched, now I'm going to cut it off. If I can find my scissors, there we go. All right, so I'm going to cut off the thread of my needle, and then I am just going to tie that to the end that I started with. Give that a nice tie. And then if you can tuck it in, that would be good, but I think I seem to have pulled a little too hard, so I'm just going to knot it, and then I'm just going to cut it really, really short. So notice now you can see some of my stitching. I accidentally did a whip stitch. It's a different stitch right there. You can see my stitching. Mostly for what people do is they go very, very close and then they stuff it. That's up to you how you want it to be. I would be fine if it was this much. No worries, but then you have your lovely pillow. Oh my goodness. It's so decorative. It's so fun. I love it. Thanks for watching.